that's good news to hear. Finally, get an organized group in the legislature. Although we've had individuals, forgive me, my nose is thawing. We've had tremendous organization in the House, but this way there'll be a single point, I hope, for legislators to find information and for us to be able to reach out to those legislators. Our next speaker, I've spotted him coming in, hatless, former state rep. I met this guy, gosh, House Bill 1589, I guess it was, in 2014, is that right? That was the first, was that universal background checks? Yep. Another one of Catherine Rogers' bills, House Bill 1589, which we absolutely annihilated. But I met this guy. He walks in to a hearing in a very expensive shoe, really nice shoes for New Hampshire. And we're kind of looking around and going, really? He's got like a $60 haircut. We're going, this is a gun guy. Well, as it turns out, not only is he a gun guy, but one of the best friends that the 2A community has had here in New Hampshire. Dr. Joe Hannon is a life member, and I believe you're the candidate for the board of Gun Owners of New Hampshire. He's currently the chair of the Stratford County Republican Committee, which is a very small committee because there's not a lot of them in Stratford County. Serves on the New Hampshire GOP Executive Board. While serving as a rep from 2014 to 2016, he worked tirelessly to defend our liberties. During the past several years, he's been actively involved in the defense of the Second Amendment, and he continues the fight every day, even though he's out of the House. He's in every hearing, we've seen him everywhere. Smile for the camera, folks. When he is not volunteering in the community, he likes to spend time with his amazing wife, Michelle, and their two children, Abby and Joey. I know it's too cold for them to be here today. And he wanted me to tell you that John Burt thinks he's cool. But even Joe didn't get a happy birthday card from the speaker. So please welcome Dr. Joe Hannon.
Wow, thank you very much, Susan. That was more than I deserve. I had a long written speech. It was my 65-degree speech. I'm not going to give that today. What I do want to say is this is a great day that we can celebrate because we have accomplished something that has been a long time coming. However, history has shown us that this is not the end of the fight. This is not new. One of the big things we fought against in the concealed carry bill was the idea of suitability. And that was an arbitrary law enforcement officer who could arbitrarily say that you are suitable to carry a firearm, concealed. This isn't a new concept. This concept goes back hundreds of years. The British determined years ago that it was not suitable for non-Protestants to carry weapons. They did this originally under the guise of game laws. They said, well, we don't want you shooting the king's deer or the goose. So they banned firearms from most people. Some people complained, so they said, okay, well, the Protestants can carry them because we don't want those Catholics to carry them. That law was changed, and it came to be that all British citizens were allowed to carry firearms to a certain degree. Now, our founding fathers realized, hey, that's a great idea. It protects us and separates us from the people that are ruled by an arbitrary elite. And what happens is that same thing, that subjective suitability, has been imposed on us many different ways over history. And not just here. It's been done by not only the British, like I said, but it was done by the Germans. Now, some people say that the Germans didn't ban all firearms. Sure, they let a lot of people have them, the people that they liked. That happens in this country. It happened with the Sullivan laws in New York City. They didn't want the Irish to have them, so they banned them. After the Civil War, the slaves were freed, and they didn't want them to have them either. So states put laws in place that banned them from carrying weapons. That's not just ancient history. This goes back to my lifetime. There were bans against Saturday night specials. You may recall in the 70s and 80s they tried to ban cheap, compact weapons. Well, what that was a way to keep poor people from having firearms, because they were easily obtained, because they weren't expensive. You had to have money. Just like you had to have money in Britain several hundred years ago. You had to be one of the elite. These laws are arbitrary, and to this day they're still pushing them. Now the fight isn't over. We talk about suitability, and we think we've won. There are still things that you do not have to have a trial or a conviction to be a prohibited person for. And we know our last president had some laws that he tried to make, well, not laws, but regulations that he tried to impose by executive order. And by doing that, he tried to ban veterans and people that had other issues, that if they had a person that was in charge of their finances, they couldn't have their right. And that's wrong. People have their rights until they're taken away by something they've done wrong in a court of law. This is a country of laws. And if we don't adhere to those laws in all instances, even if we don't agree with it, we're not the country we think we are. You're going to hear more things in the next several years, because the people that are trying to take these rights away are not going to stop. They're going to find every little crack they can find and try to exploit anything they can with emotions. Emotions is not something we should make laws with. We should use our rights and facts. Now, one thing that they're going to try is to institute any little thing that the public seems as a prohibited class. We hear a lot about people with mental illness. Now, I know there's a lot of people I don't think should have a firearm. I remember Clint Eastwood was asked, and I'm paraphrasing, he thinks, nobody should have a firearm but me. Well, that's not very practical. He didn't want to put that in the law either. But there are going to be people that are vilified. Currently, people with mental illness are vilified as a blanket statement by people on both sides, unfortunately. And people with mental illness are much less likely to be the cause of violent crime than the rest of the population, believe it or not. They're more likely to be the victim of a crime than to commit one with a firearm. Now, that's not saying that people that have serious issues shouldn't have their time in court to defend themselves. But what happens is they don't always have that time. People are just deemed a certain class of citizen, whether it's mental illness or whether it's someone who has any kind of medical condition. Years ago, there was a bunch of anti-gun groups that got together, and they had a long list of things they were talking about pushing. And I was, I sat in on this meeting because it was posted publicly, so I showed up. And I was surprised. Some of the things that they wanted to ban were pretty ridiculous, but they just wanted to keep the idea of gun control in the public's mind. That's what they said. They were actually told by the minority leader at that time, we have an election coming, don't push too many gun control things because that doesn't help us. So our opposition knows that at election time. So you see most of these bills coming the year before the election. You'll see a few next year, but not as many as you did this year, most likely. And at that time, one of the things that just struck my mind was they wanted to ban blind people from carrying firearms and owning them. And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know we had a rash of blind people trying to carry firearms, but it's just something that seems like a good idea. Well, I'm not saying that we should be handing them out to people like that, but we shouldn't be prohibiting anybody of the right to self-defense. If someone has a condition, say someone's in college and they had a suicidal episode, or there's someone who's bulimic, a young lady who's bulimic, a young man, that person has to go into a hospital for an involuntary commitment. That person is now banned from life from being a firearm owner. They're now a prohibited person. Now that doesn't mean that person can't get better. And when that ability to have that happen isn't there, people's rights are banned for life, and that's wrong, because people do get better. Now, you can't necessarily change the color of your skin, to get your rights back. Luckily, we've changed that. You can change your religion. You can go from Protestant to Catholic, so I guess that's not an issue. But there are things that you can change, and people do get better. Now, we have to be open as a community, as a Second Amendment community, and as New Hampshire citizens, that not all people that are going to be vilified in the future have the right, have the ability to have their rights taken away from them. So I'm not saying that we have to say everybody on the planet should have a firearm no matter what. I'm not saying that. But we do have to be cognizant of the fact that people should have their time in court. They should have the ability to petition the government to get their rights back when taken, especially when they're taken improperly. And I just want people to be a little aware that it's not just Second Amendment issues we're talking about. These are things that can apply to any of our rights. Your rights can be taken for any number of reasons, and that's wrong. We have to be aware that this is a constant fight. We have to be always aware that even if it's not a Second Amendment issue, when someone else's rights are taken, even if we don't agree with them, we have to stand for those rights. We do it for First Amendment issues all the time. There's a lot of offensive speech out there, and I'll defend your right to the death to say what you want to say. I don't agree with it, and it's the same with the Second Amendment. Whether I agree with it or not, we have to defend your rights no matter what. Thank you very much.
Croc TV.